Welcome back to The Chosen Life. I'm your host, The Chosen Lawyer, and back for a second appearance, our sports guru, the all-knowing Mr. Wayne Frazer of Doug Laurie Sports. Wayne, welcome back to The Chosen Life.
Glad to be here again early on this Wednesday morning again, Jonathan, and looking forward to talking a little sports more than I even normally get in the store here.
So typically we all record on our different slots. It's one of the wonderful wonders of the internet because we don't actually display this live. So everybody records at a different time. I had somebody in Newfoundland. We had to record at 4:30 in the morning on a weekday. That was really fun to wake up for. I've had as late as 11:30 p.m. when I had from the Trailer Park Boys. Cyrus is based out in the LA area, and it took me about 9 attempts to get him on the show. So he messages me at 11 o'clock at night, my time, and says, "Hey, I'll be ready very shortly." I'm like, "Yeah, buddy, I'm wide awake." And you grab the coffee, get out of your PJs, and you start recording. That's the life of podcasting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not used to because the store doesn't open until 10:30. A lot of times I'm in here a bit later or I'm running around doing whatever it is that I need to do in the morning. So, but my wife is up at like 5:30 or 6 every morning, right? And so I can never beat her downstairs. I come downstairs all groggy at 7 o'clock and she's like, "What's going on, sleepyhead?" And I'm like, "Shut up. It's too early to even be talking about this stuff. There's no coffee. We don't even have." The funny thing is, I drink a coffee or so, well, I should show my thing there. I drink a coffee or two, every day or whatever. But there you go. But we don't even have a coffee machine in the house. Like I have a great gas station in my town, and I have one there. And then I'm really blessed that the little convenience store here in the mall has amazing coffee too, right? Better than Tim's or I can't do Starbucks. Ugh. Are you a Starbucks guy?
You know what? I actually don't mind Starbucks. It's not my favorite on the planet. I do like it a lot more than Tim's. I like McDonald's coffee, actually. I
Oh,
find it really good.
so if I'm going out somewhere to buy a coffee, it's
Yeah.
McDonald's for sure. Yeah, I find Tim's to be weak, and I find Starbucks to be taste like it's burnt. No matter
Yes.
what I get in it, I just don't like it. And people are like, "Oh, you don't like strong coffee?" And I'm like, "No, I don't like burnt coffee." Right? I
Uh,
I do like the what is it? The spinach feta and egg wrap they have there with a little sriracha. That's a good start to the morning, and it's as close to as I stay to keto. That's about all I can get there anyway, right? So
and you gotta love when you go to Starbucks and you buy a breakfast sandwich and a coffee, and it's $15 later. So
yeah, I went
they're
there
doing
the
all
other
right.
day. The other day I got the wrap and I got a piece of banana bread for a friend of mine, and it was like $10.15. And then I thought, do I tip? And I'm like, I'm not tipping. I went through the drive-through. You're getting paid to do your job. I guess if I went inside and I had you do one of those goofy drinks and it took you 15 minutes, But I got to say also when I went through there, and this is going to make anybody who's a Starbucks barista mad, they have on the back of their shirts now, it says like craft and then something else, and I'm like, you're not crafting anything. You're putting sugar in a coffee. That's not crafting. That's saying that the guy who put your Big Mac together at McDonald's crafted your Big Mac. No, he made it. You made my coffee. That guy made a Big Mac or whatever else. Let's not make this into something it isn't, right? If you are hand grinding the coffee and whatever else, and I know there are coffee stores that do that, and more power to you if you're into that kind of stuff. But let's not, words mean things. You're not crafting anything. I'm sorry.
This is why we love Wayne, and this is why Wayne is needed on The Chosen Life. After your first appearance, Wayne, I said, this guy is not holding back. He's got an opinion on pretty much everything. Very knowledgeable. Love this guy. And he's going to be back many, many times. So your second appearance is very quickly for that very reason, because you can help us analyze crafting coffee on a sports related theme show for today's topic. So
And
thank you
I
for,
I do want to point out too that I
yeah.
saw that there were a couple of people who kind of came back at me on your Instagram page about when I talked about Tom Brady last show and his kids and everything, and how I felt about that. And it's perfectly valid. People get mad at me or whatever. I don't really care. Um, but I do want to say to the guy on the page who mentioned that, he's like, you could be home with your own kids. And I'm like, instead of making this video, that's hypocritical of you. And I'm like, dude, I am home with my kids all the time. And I'm making the video when my kids are in school. are at home being homeschooled by my wife and I'm at work. Tom Brady doesn't need to do that. He can just quit right now and go home and spend all that time with his kids, right? So we're in two different situations. I understand what you're saying. You're just wrong, right? So
I love the haters and I love the shit disturbers on social media. They're awesome and they love creating conversations. I'd also say that your profession at Doug Laurie Sports is a little bit safer than Tom Brady's as far as the hits that you take versus him. I believe that his choice of profession and the danger level at his age, I think, has a little bit to do with his marital situation as well. And we will get into Tom Brady, but I'm going to guess that's a little part as well. I will let people know, as always, hit the subscribe button, notification bell, find out about the latest episodes of The Chosen Life. And we're going to go through a lot of stuff today. We're not holding back. So please share your comments. We love your feedback. Before we get started on the sports related end of things, because that's usually where we go. Mr. Kanye, should we go there or not go there? It's interesting.
I'm not really sure what to say about Kanye. I mean,
Let me
do
ask you
I
that. Let
do
me
I
ask you this: Are are we done with him? Like, is he been? They take an eraser and they erase him out? Like, has he been
no,
wiped off
no,
the
no,
earth? Are we
no,
done?
no.
We're
He's
not done.
far so he's got he's got two or three things going for him.
Okay.
He's far too rich to be erased. Okay.
Mhm.
The other thing is that because he has aligned himself with the conservative side of politics now, there are not a whole lot of people who are super visible in that side of politics, right? So no matter how much you can only be erased if you're willing to be erased. I mean, that's just the honest truth. You only, you either have to make a decision that yes, I'm going to let them shut me up, whichever side you're on, or no, I'm not. And so I don't feel like Kanye is going to shut up. I think he said some really stupid stuff. I don't think Kanye is a genius, uh, but I also don't think he's a moron. And I think he's probably at least as well educated and read as most of the other people I see on regular media or anything else like that. Do I think he's going away? He might go away for a little bit, but I don't think he's totally gone, right? I just I have a problem with whether we're going to listen to Kanye or Katy Perry or Taylor Swift or whoever. None of these people are qualified to be talking about any of this stuff, at least not in the sense that we should be taking what they say seriously. Everybody has an opinion and everybody's opinion is not worth listening to, right? You have to pick and choose the people you want to listen to. There are people I'm a conservative guy. There are people I listen to on the right, but I also listen to people on the left too, especially to make sure that if I'm hearing it on the left and the right, then it's probably the truth or some amalgam thereof, right? If I'm only hearing it on one side or the other, it's probably crap. So I just, you know what, I don't pay much attention to any of that kind of stuff if I can help it. And I was just never a big Kanye fan for music, but I don't like Drake either. So
Well, with Kanye, me being of Jubu lineage, and of course, listen, there's nothing but offensive feelings when you hear what he has to say. But I also tell people, you got to consider the source here. I mean, it kind of feels like he's thinking to himself, how can I burn down my empire as quickly and as painfully as possible? How can I offend as many people as I can? How can I destroy this thing? Go from being worth whatever 1.5 billion down to 400 million in an instant. And I think he's been very successful at it. Like if he came to me and said to me, chosen lawyer, listen, we may not agree on religion here, maybe not like your background, but let's do a show on how to burn down an empire and talk about that weekly. I may take him up. I think he's got some free time right now. So Kanye, we can certainly talk about that. Probably not going to agree with much you have to say there, but like seriously think about it. Like, does this come back to the Kardashians? I mean, is there something about this family that the men that they touch turn to crap? Like, what happened to Bruce and to Lamar?
I think
What?
you have to look at the men who are willing to be partners with those women
Hmm.
and question their character and intelligence from the jump, right? So, do they have the reverse Midas touch where everything they touch turns to crap, or are the people who are attracted to them just going to turn out to be not the best people on the face of the earth? And you have to make that decision. I don't have anything against Bruce Jenner, Bruce, or
Caitlyn.
Caitlyn Jenner, whatever. I don't have, you're a grown person. Do whatever the hell you want to do, right? I don't really care. The funny thing is that Caitlyn is more conservative than anybody else in that family, and yet I probably agree more with Caitlyn than anybody else involved in that, whether Kim or anybody else, right? So I don't know. I don't traffic in that world very much. It comes on. I don't watch mainstream media much. I watch news much. I read just different things and don't watch a lot of TV anymore other than sports. I'm mostly watching YouTube videos on on people going through hoarder houses and stuff like that, right? So, and looking for things that I should be looking for in the market. So
Amazing. Well, we're gonna leave it at that for now. But I just marveled because now they just announced yesterday that they're pulling all the Yeezys off the shelves, and his contract with Adidas is gone, and they're going to be producing his stuff, but not under his name anymore. I think we're gonna be hearing a lot more about this for a while, and it's gonna be really interesting to see how he reinvents himself. If I were him, and I had my PR person who hasn't fired me yet, I'd be saying I'm going to rehab and I found God yet again, and I have a different perspective, and I had a lot of hate within me, and life really beat me down, and I went on all sorts of directions. This is where I see Kanye going with it. I think he will find a way to reinvent himself, or this was all a grand ruse to be able to go and get off into the night and be left alone. So let's see. But I think he'll be back. I agree.
possible, yeah.
To the world of professional wrestling, we start off in sports. We were going to start with baseball because we got the World Series almost underway. But a little sad note there, Kevin Nash very recently announced that he lost his son Tristan at the age of 26. There's something about professional wrestling, Wayne, that man, they go young, families get affected. Like it's a hard living being in a wrestling family.
I think that for wrestling families, the wrestlers themselves, people don't realize the amount of stress and how hard the job is. And I'm not talking about just, your average jobber that's working at a small promotion and getting 50 or 100 bucks. I'm talking about if you're Kevin Nash, you're wrestling 325, 335 nights a year. And, whatever you want to think about the quality of athletics going on in professional wrestling, those guys are getting beat up every night. Um, Nobody really seems to blink an eye very much when somebody in the NFL gets hooked on painkillers. But with wrestling, it's like, oh, they have a drug problem. No, anybody who is in chronic pain all the time is a pretty good candidate to get hooked on painkillers or something else, whether it's booze or Coke or whatever it is that's going to get them through, except that we're not in that. I don't think we're in that era anymore. I'm not naive enough to say, oh, that there's not some steroids or drug use or whatever, anything else like that. But I think we went through a period for a long time where it was just sort of anything goes, and whatever gets you out into the ring is acceptable in the eyes of the company or whoever you're working for or yourself. You just got to keep going. And you got to remember too, there's no job security in wrestling. I mean, there might be one dude, maybe two at any given time, who can say, hey, you know what? I got to take some time off because this hurts. I got to get surgery or whatever else. Everybody else is afraid that you step away and you're out of a gig, and you're not coming back either. You're probably not coming back. I mean, there's some of that in the NFL. You can't win a spot on the roster from the ice bath, right? Or the trainer's table. That's true, but that's not nearly as prevalent as it is in wrestling. And it's not so. Plus, a lot of these guys, their big shot is 6 months in the WWE, and then they ride that for the rest of their lives, right? So, how does it trickle down from into the families? I don't know. I mean, is it, I learned it from you, Dad. I mean, I remember that commercial, and, is it is it kids seeing other people doing it? Is because the families are so fractured because the dad is gone all the time? and is not there to really provide the role model, maybe that he could if he wasn't traveling constantly. I don't know. I suspect that just simply there's more exposure to that sort of thing if you're in one of those families. Uh, and so there's just a greater chance of something bad coming down the pipe with it. And as a wrestler, I mean, my gosh, how many more times are you more likely to be exposed to that kind of stuff, be given it or anything else? You're getting the crap beat out of you 6 out of 7 nights, right? That's pretty tough life.
I was gonna say, in wrestling, the relationship with the families and the overall just the stigma of dying young if you're relating to the sport. You think about the long line of the greats. The Rick Rudes, Mr. Perfects, Big Boss Man. The list goes on and on and on. These guys that died before 50, and still had a lot of years left. Some go in their 30s, 20s, 40s, but the list of lost wrestlers, who died young. It's pages and manuals worth of it. And then, when you hear the Kevin Nash story, one of the first things that came to my mind now, as far as tragedy, just lost Scott Hall and, in the inner circle there and grieving for his best friend. And then he loses his son. And one of the first people to reach out to him was Ric Flair. Ric Flair lost his son, who died at a young age. And there's the one thought I thought to where you went with it, where you had, the children that their dads aren't around or moms that are involved in professional wrestling, and they may, you go to substance just to go and ease the pain, or they learned it from their parents. But also, like, keep in mind, imagine your dad is Kevin Nash, right? And you go to a bar anywhere in the States with Kevin Nash, and they're like, everybody will freak out because everybody knows Kevin Nash, big sexy, right? You're his son. Come on, free drinks for you too. I imagine that it's an enabled lifestyle just by being their children. I mean, think about the children of any celebrity.
Right, exactly.
Everybody knows them, everybody hails them, or you come in with your parent, you're got a ticket to ride. And Kevin just announced on his podcast, as far as how his son passed, that they both made a decision to stop drinking together, go cold turkey. And apparently his son, trying to get clean, went into cardiac arrest, and that's what he died from. So he actually died from, because Kevin brought up the example of coffee. You got try to give up coffee, and you get like you get the headaches, or you get like the twitches, right? You try to give up drinking, and you're used to
Yes.
drinking. It's very hard to go off anything cold turkey. You're supposed to gradually ease off of it, but some people try it, and it's such a shame. In fact, if I don't know if he had any kind of condition, pre-existing medical condition that enabled this for him, unfortunately. But you make the conscious decision to clean up, and that ends up being your downfall. It's so sad, and I'm sure so much goes through his mind, especially trying to convince his son to go clean, trying to do it together. And he's like, man, I lost my son. There's nothing more tragic on this earth, I don't care what anybody says, than burying your own child. There's nothing that it just destroys families. You never get over that. And our hearts and prayers are out for the Nash family.
Yeah, I it's almost hard to talk about or think about what caused this or anything, anything else, or talk about, is it possible that, this is caused by families being apart too much or whatever else. You just feel for him, and that's a discussion for maybe later. Just right now, it's just, I'm not much of a prayers guy, but I have 4 kids, and I can't imagine what he's going through right now. I just can't imagine it. Right. So,
Well, hearts reach out to him and to his family, like we said. And we're gonna turn over now to a more uplifting topic, and it's baseball. And we got a lot going on in the world of baseball. We're gonna get to our World Series momentarily because it begins in a couple days for us. When this airs, we'll already have started the World Series, but we're gonna make our pre-World Series predictions. But before then, there's a little bit of talk around the Blue Jays, and we're being based around Ontario, Canada here. We're gonna talk about the Toronto side of things, but we talk about all sports. Managerial wise, John Schneider just signing recently a 3-year deal. The Blue Jays blowing one of the worst leads in a playoff game and got obliterated by the Mariners, who then bowed out 2 seconds later. But the Blue Jays had so much hope. They made that managerial change, get into the playoffs, get obliterated, go out into the night. I wasn't sure if he was going to be back. I didn't know if I wanted him back. I kind of felt like we need to go for a more experienced person in this case, somebody who's been there before. but apparently he's got the clubhouse, he's got the respect, he's a lifer, so he gets the deal. Do you like it or not like that signing?
I'm ambivalent. I would not have given him a 3-year deal, I don't think, but maybe that's what it took to get it done. And the 3-year deal to me shows that the management feels like he's the guy. And that's fine. If they think he's the guy, then he's the guy. I just feel like this group needs a firmer hand. I don't know if Schneider is going to be that. I didn't see a lot of that in the dugout. I'm not one of these guys who's super thrilled about guys jumping around and putting the jacket on and everything else. Maybe focus on the game a little more. And I know immediately people are going to be like, "What the hell do you know? You didn't play in the major leagues." Yeah, I didn't, but I have 2 eyes, and I can see when people aren't looking at the friggin' game, and I can see when we're more worried about dumping seeds on people than watching the pitcher. You know, so if you win the World Series, I guess yeah, you can dump the seeds on people all you want, but you didn't. You blew. I mean, again, you can't overstate. You shouldn't overstate. That's one game where a couple of poor decisions were made, and they just absolutely turned out in the worst possible way. And so I'm not going to say, "Oh my God, John Schneider should be the manager now because he took out Kevin Gossman." Did I agree with that? Absolutely not. I didn't think it was the right call. But overall, I don't have a huge problem with Schneider, how he manages or anything. I would have liked to have seen maybe kick the tires on a few other guys. Maybe Terry Francona is going to be available. What's John Gibbons doing? I miss Gibby. Look, and I think Gibby would be the perfect fit for this team. You know why? Because Gibby's a fun-loving guy too, but Gibby also does not put up with any crap. And I think that's what these guys need. Is I think they need a guy to just somebody to say, "Hey, I look, they're grown men, okay? They're adults, and if you're okay with doing what they're doing in the clubhouse or in the dugout or whatever else, I don't think it's a big deal. Just the same way I don't think a manager makes a huge difference. They might be a difference of a few games, right? But if you're looking for a specific tone, and you think this is the tone I want for the team, well, then I guess you hire the guy that the tone was there for the last half of the season. If you're looking for somebody to come in and, crack the whip a little bit more, I don't necessarily know that John Schneider's the guy.
I think Joe Girardi's available, but I don't know if we want him or not. He's sitting at home collecting his paycheck. Yeah.
Again, I just think, people where I don't like Charlie Montoyo or I don't like this guy, I don't like that guy. I don't think Charlie Montoyo, I don't think John Schneider, I don't think John Gibbons, and I don't think Joe Girardi makes a difference of more than a couple of games overall. I think what you have to have is you've got to look at the lineup towards the end of the season, and you've got to figure out now, okay, well, now we have John Schneider for 3 years, and we know we're going to play. This is the style he wants to play. What can we do to complement that style, right? Who do you go out and get? I mean, I keep hearing rumors of the Blue Jays, and again, the Blue Jays are possibly all in on a trade for Ohtani. Okay. They were all in for Yu Darvish 5 or 10 years ago too, and it turned out they were $50 million below what the actual bid was. So you can say you're in, but are you really in? And if you're going to really pursue that trade, the hell are you going to give up? Like, what are they going to want? They're going to want Manoah, Kirk, maybe a couple of other pieces. I don't know. I mean, I really like Shohei Ohtani a lot, but I don't know whether you can. Are you gutting the team then? Are you happy with what you have as a core? I'm not married to Kirk. I love Kirk. I enjoy watching him play. I also think within 3 or 4 years he's going to have trouble with his knees. And is he going to continue to hit the way he does? Maybe. I mean, but he might end up just being a DH within 2 or 3 years, and then you have to decide whether if you can get something amazing for him right now. And I don't think you can. I don't think anybody else is going to overpay for Kirk right now, right?
Well, Schneider, let's get finishing off on Schneider. I think he did not get $8-9 million on that 3-year deal. So I don't know if he's making a couple 100,000, 500,000, whatever he's making. But what I'm saying is they're not breaking the bank on the manager wise. If they don't like him half a season into it, they can let him go.
Yeah.
pay out that contract and get whatever manager they want. It's funny. I remember back in the day when Babcock came to the Maple Leafs and they signed him to that monster deal. Then you got to think about it because you can't just let the guy go early on in the deal because you paid him millions of dollars. This is not the case whatsoever. Love Gibby. Gibby started up his own podcast. I think he's into episode 5 or 6 now. He's doing a great job with it, bringing a lot of great guys. He's really active on Twitter and social media. So he's really happy with his life. I could see him coming back, but I don't know if he wants to. I don't know if the Jays want him back for a third time around. Look at the World Series going into right now. You got Dusty Baker versus Robbie Thompson, and it's amazing. You can say the other manager, doesn't make that much of a difference. Well, Houston kept chugging along with having an experienced hand there. Thompson, also being a baseball lifer, been around the Yankees forever. I think he has 5 rings from the Yankees, so that doesn't hurt as well, having that kind of experience. Don't know how many rings are on Schneider's fingers. Don't know how many rings were on Montoya's fingers, but having guys that have coached on, I don't care if they were the bench coach, the bullpen coach, the dugout coach, whatever. It makes a big difference when you've actually been around winning World Series teams with the management side of it. Now, flipping to, if we agree that the managerial side isn't going to make or break a lot of teams, it's maybe not going to win you a World Series. The guys are the ones on the field that are going to have to win you those games. I think Toronto right now is in a state of delusion on sports talk radio. And they're talking about Shohei Ohtani and how the Jays are really close and the Jays are really in on Ohtani, like you were saying. And they were debating on yesterday's show on our leading sports radio network. And they were saying, so we're going to get Ohtani. How is this going to affect our ability? Because he's going to take up the DH spot most of the time. So now we can't rotate our guys in and out of the DH to give them a break from the field. Is this good for us or not? First of all, you get Ohtani. You are going to burn away your DH spot. I think you're very happy with that. The man's numbers are insanity. You have your number 1, number 2 starter. You have your cleanup hitter. Otherwise, it's a no-brainer. Every team in baseball should be in on Ohtani. No question. The question from the Angels' point of view, they're up for sale. You got Mike Trout still. How do you explain to Trout trading Ohtani unless you're trying to say you're still all in? Like Trout, if Ohtani gets traded, I don't care what you get for Ohtani. I can't imagine he's very happy with the team at that point. I don't know if the future owner wants Ohtani or not. So I think there's a lot of politics that go into that. But regardless, whether you're trading him or not, I can't see him signing an extension. He's 1 year away. He had this biblical season of Babe Ruthian proportions. If I'm him, I'm going to do exactly what Judge did. I'm going to play on my 1 year, $35 million, whatever he got. Go to free agency, and they're all going to line up. And I know who's going to sign him in free agency. I can smell this a mile away. You ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco Giants, 1,000%. That's where he's headed. He wants to stay on the West Coast. He loves on the West Coast. They're going to do exactly what they did with Barry Bonds back in the day. They're going to open up the bank. They're going to get the biggest free agent possible because they need a big shakeup. And I think he's their guy. And no matter what you give up for him, I can't see him signing with you unless you give him $700 million at this point.
Are we still talking about Ohtani or are we talking about Aaron Judge?
No, we're still talking Ohtani.
Okay, because I think you hit on, I think Judge is probably the most likely guy for the San Francisco Giants. I think Judge wants to play there. And I think there's a real good chance he goes there. What if you got both?
Listen, what if I got a third leg? It's not happening. It's not happening. It's not happening. Judge. We're going to go Judge route between Ohtani and Judge because we're going to talk about Judge as well. Judge is staying in New York. There's no reason to leave New York. You're the biggest thing on the biggest team, on the biggest platform. I cannot see him leaving the Yankees. I don't think they're going to let him leave. Can't see it. I just can't see it. But I've been wrong before.
I don't think that Judge has a particularly good reason to leave New York, but I do know he's a California kid, right? He has expressed interest in the Giants, and I think he would fit there just as well as he fits in Yankee Stadium. Now, I don't know who the hell walks away from being Aaron Judge in the New York Yankees. I mean, that's pretty tough. And I mean, even if they can't pay you, if it's a little bit less than everybody else offers you, I don't know how you leave what is pretty clearly almost a perfect situation. But if the difference is, let's say the contract is 10 years and the difference is $50 million, and the Giants just overpay, does Mike Judge, not the creator of Beavis and Butthead, Aaron Judge, does Aaron Judge say, no, I'm going to eat the $50 million and stay with the Yankees? I don't know that the Yankees, I would hope that the Yankees would at least be somewhat smart enough to not just write a blank check. That's how teams get in trouble, right? I know Aaron Judge is extremely important to your organization, but there's also a limit, right? And if that limit is, what do you think the contract is? Is it 35 million a year for a long term? Is it easily, right? Maybe more than that, right?
Easy. There's talk of him getting 50 million a year. Like this is literally insanity at this point.
So let's say that the contract is from the Yankees. Let's say it's 425 million for 10 years, 42.5 a year. And let's say that the Giants come in and they say 475. If you're Judge, is the $50 million difference enough to stay with the Yankees? Do you say, okay, I'll eat it? Or do you go? Somebody's going to throw that number out there.
Yeah, but if you look at how much he's getting after taxes, number one,
right?
Then number two, you consider the endorsement potential of the Yankees versus the Giants. He's staying in New York if it's going to be purely about money. Getting back to Ohtani, as far as what it would take to get him in a trade, I don't see the Jays are no chance they're giving up Manoah. He ain't going nowhere fast. It's going to be one of their catchers, either Kirk or Moreno, and a bunch of pieces. And I just don't think it's sexy enough. And I think any team that really wants him that badly, the Angels are going to want your whole farm system. You literally have to sign over your whole AAA team and all your top prospects currently on the major league roster. It's not happening. It takes two. I don't even know what. I can't even fathom how many players. It's got to take like 10 players to get this guy off your team. And if you try to make a condition where you're going to have room to negotiate an extension, I don't think he's signing an extension with anybody. I don't see his reasoning for it. I think he wants free agency. He's going to take free agency. And imagine right now Ohtani on the open market. If I'm bidding for him or Judge, I'm taking Ohtani in a second.
Yeah.
It's equal dollar for dollar.
So what do you think, though, if Ohtani makes it clear that he is not going to re-sign wherever he's going? I'm going to play out the 1-year deal, right? If he gets dealt, how does that affect the trade? Because suddenly you're not going to give up the entire farm system. If you know he's only a year rental, you can use him for the year, right? And then you have the inside track maybe to sign him if he really likes it.
Give them DeMar DeRozan, Jacob Poeltl, and take your chances for a 1-year championship. A la Kawhi Leonard. No, if I'm a team, as long as I don't have to give up my absolute core of what I think it is, but I have guys that are maybe a couple years away, and I can give the Angels like 5 amazing pieces, but I don't care about them for this year, next year. I'm doing it in a heartbeat. It's no different than fantasy baseball. I'm gutting my team if I get a chance for the championship. If you have Shohei Ohtani on your team, if you're the Blue Jays, if you're the Mariners, any team essentially that was any kind of contention, think about the Yankees. Think about Ohtani 1 year on the Yankees. Oh my Lord, the Babe Ruth comparisons. You have to do it. You absolutely have to do it. And if I was a GM, I'd be talking to the Angels every single day, trying to pick their pocket, going every possible angle. It is doable. The question is, do the Angels even want to move him at this point? And again, for political reasons, is it easier to sell the team with him still on the roster? How's Mike Trout going to reach this? Like, Ohtani's off that team. This team is in the gutter now. Like, they are just pure garbage. They're already garbage, but they're going to be even more in the dumpster. So I think for them, they actually have to keep him, sadly enough. Maybe trade him at the deadline then at that point.
I kind of can't imagine that the Angels aren't talking with Mike Trout about the possibility of moving him too.
Wow.
Because if you're going to blow it up, right? And if Mike Trout, look, do you think Trout wants to stay there for the rest of his career and suck? Like, I mean, it's just going to be bad, right? It's going to take 4, 5, 6 years to really probably get anything together, unless you can sell the team quickly, and then suddenly the new ownership comes in and says, whoever it is, blank check, we're signing everybody, right? And the chances that happen are not very good. The question about whoever the new owner is a good one, because does it look better if you're trying to sell the team to say, well, we have these big draws in Trout and Ohtani, or is it more attractive to a new owner to say, look how clear the books are, you can basically, you're starting from scratch and you're getting this team, but you're not spending a lot of money on payroll right now. You can make money hand over fist for a little while you start to build the team back up. I think from a purchasing standpoint, I think you would probably rather have the clear books. And plus, I hate to say it, but Trout is probably not going to get better than he has been. It makes sense for the Angels to get what they can and move that off the books and start fresh.
If Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani are off the Angels, then I think baseball has to seriously consider what NBA has been talking about. And that's if you're tanking, you're going to have relegation and you're going to go down to AAA. So then I think the Angels should become a AAA team and go down with the Pirates and bring up the best AAA teams. This is they're going to be in the gutter forever without Trout and Ohtani. There's something about the marketability. Everybody loves Mike Trout. I cannot imagine Mike Trout anywhere but an Angels uniform. He's got whatever hundreds of millions of reasons to stay there. I don't know. I for some reason with Trout and his personality, I think he's gonna be upset that he's not contending, but he's not rocking the boat. He's like, I'm the kingpin here. I like the weather a lot. I like my fans. I'm a one team guy for the rest of my life. They drafted me. They took care of me. I don't know. Ohtani, I'm seeing visions of him in a Giants uniform. I can't see Trout anywhere else. Like imagine Trout going to Philadelphia and playing with Harper. Oh man, that would be nuts.
Yeah, I don't think Trout wants to go anywhere. I think he may just look at the situation and say, you know what? I'm going to burn the last 4 or 5 years of my career here, and we might win 60 games a year for the next 3 or 4 years. If they can get me somewhere like Philadelphia, or they can get me somewhere like, oh my God, the Dodgers, or something like that, maybe he makes that decision and says, I don't think there's any interest from his standpoint wanting to leave just to go somewhere else. I think he may just look at the decision. And also, I do think that Mike Trout is a character guy. He may look at it and think it's the best thing for the Angels too. And he may be looking at it long term. What if they offer him a piece of the ownership? You leave, let us get back whatever we're going to get back, clear the books, and we'll let you buy into the team when you retire.
Well, Albert Pujols is going to be back soon because he signed that marketing deal, and he's going to honor it apparently. So good old Albert's going to be coming on back. Getting to the World Series, Wayne, did you see the Astros Phillies?
No, I didn't see the Phillies. The Astros, I think you could have made a case. It was either New York or Houston. I think they were pretty clearly the cream of the crop. Philadelphia has just gotten hot at the right time. I mean, they're not even really. They're hitting the ball okay, right? They're just hitting it at the right times, and that's exactly the Padres didn't, right? They just absolutely could not get it done. Zach Wheeler has just been unbelievably good since coming back from the injury, and it's almost like that month or month and a half he was off, it's like he's got a fresh arm, right? He's the best pitcher in baseball right now, I think. So, I wouldn't have said that I thought it was the Phillies. I have to also say, I'm happy for the Phillies. I have kind of a soft spot for the Phillies. But man, was I pulling for the Padres to win it all so they could just give a big double fingers to Tatis and say, see, we didn't even need your butt.
I think
you dummy.
I think he'd still get a ring, though.
So, I don't know. I would, if I was them, I wouldn't even invite him to the damn ceremony. I'd be like, yeah, we'll mail it to you, jerk. That would have made me kind of happy. But I like seeing this. I like the Phillies and Houston, although I'm sure Major League Baseball was not super thrilled with the matchup. It's not, too. Houston is a big market. People don't realize, but it's not as sexy as LA, Boston or New York or whatever else.
I think they're relieved it's Houston and Philly, not like Seattle and San Diego, for example. But you ready to make your prediction? Where do you see the World Series going?
As much as I hate to say this, I think it's Houston in 5.
I really want to see Philadelphia. I loved watching them. It was such a fun series. I feel like they all got the same amount of time off. I think Houston is going to absolutely obliterate them. I can't even see Houston losing a game here. I think it's going to be Houston in 4. But I want to see the Phillies win. Like, I just love the excitement around them. I love their scrappy nature. I want to see Harper get a ring. Rhys Hoskins been amazing. Like, I just love that team. They're a lot of fun to watch. So I'm pulling for them. They got Dave Robertson back there. But, what would have been really cool is an article popped up this morning on my feed as I was getting ready for the show. And I kept saying, if you want Houston to bring him back to the AL, we should have done something else. We should have brought back their name We should make him back to Colt 45s.
Well, make him play in the Astrodome too, right? Except they tore the Astrodome finally, I think.
Yes, they did. Yes,
yeah, that's back in Rusty Staub played for them. Bob Astromonte, Joe Morgan was with Colt 45s, and they had a guy named Jimmy the Toy Cannon Wynn, who was about 5'7" or 5'8", and just had amazing power for being a smaller guy. People don't realize, if you really want to do some interesting, like dig deep in baseball, look back at those teams during the 60s and 70s when they played at the Astrodome and how it destroyed guys' careers because you could not hit home runs in the Astrodome. Like Bob Watson. Bob Watson would have been a Hall of Famer with any other team, but instead he'd hit 20 home runs there when he would have hit 35 or 40 with any other team. There was a guy who played for the Jays for a while too, Deron Johnson, I think, who early in the 70s and 80s. And he was another guy who, if the Astros had just brought him up and let him play, he might have been a Hall of Famer. They kept taking him up and down, and then it was where you went to die. Like you did a fly ball, and it just didn't go anywhere in that field, right? It's a really interesting read.
And, you know, for anybody who's never done this before, if you ever have the chance to be in a stadium where they have the turf, and I remember in Toronto in what was a Sky Dome at the time before with the Rogers Center, and they upgraded it. I was on the field, like you pick up the layer of grass, and it's like this like garbage turf that people put the fake grass in their backyards, and it's on concrete.
Yeah.
How do people's knees survive running on this crap? Like, it was terrible. It was absolutely the worst thing I've ever seen. And so no surprise that what the AstroTurf was back in the day from the Astrodome and the Houston Astros was responsible for a lot of careers ending prematurely.
I grew up in St. Louis, and we used to go to the ball games in July and August, and it'd be 102, 103 degrees. And if you were on the field, it would be 125 or 130. And they could not wear rubber spikes because they would melt, because the asphalt underneath the AstroTurf was so hot. And then you think about it and you think that's terrible. And then we used to go watch the football Cardinals play on that same field. And you'd watch guys, and it was basically like playing in the Kmart parking lot. I mean, you would watch guys' heads bounce off the turf, and you'd think, oh my God. And you're basically playing on a concrete pad or an asphalt pad with a piece of carpet on top of it. I mean, you talk about concussions now, and obviously they're a very serious problem and all that. Think about it, what it was 40, 50 years ago without the helmet technology, without the targeting rules or the roughing the passer and everything else, with all the stuff that still happens on the better fields and everything else. I don't know how any of those guys are upright.
Now, in the age of political correctness, we're not going to see the Washington Bullets come back. We're not going to see the Washington Redskins. Are we going to be seeing eventually the Houston Colt 45s ever come back? I think the answer is a definite no. But do you know the reason why they changed the name initially?
I would guess it either has to do with the fact that they were moving to the Astrodome, or for the Johnson Space Center. Oh no, Johnson Space Center is in Florida. There's another one in
There's
Houston
one in
somewhere.
Houston,
yeah,
correct. So they were switching over to the Astrodome. They were having their new stadium at the time. They played in a temporary stadium, Colt Stadium, I believe it was called. It was a one-level piece of garbage, worse than the Tampa Stadium. And so they were moving regardless, and they thought it'd be nice to have a name change with their new stadium, but also money, because they were licensing the name Colt 45s from the gun company. And the gun company said, we want a piece of your merchandising fees. The same way that, do you know why we have Ace as the mascot for the Blue Jays and not BJ Birdie?
No.
Toronto, in their wisdom, did not own the trademark to BJ Birdie. There was a gentleman that owned BJ Birdie, and he wanted more money. So the Blue Jays said, that's fine. Get lost. We're going to create our own mascot. So the Houston said, get lost. We're not going to be the Colt 45s anymore. We're going to be the Astros. But now in this day and age, can you imagine an expansion team being called the Colt 45s with a smoking gun? Never going to happen.
Right.
Never.
There was a minor league team for a while, the Reading Rifles. You know, you're not ever going to see any of that sort of thing anymore. That I got to tell you too, that fascinates me. Copyright stuff and trademark stuff absolutely fascinates me. There was a guy here in Barrie, and I don't think he's doing it anymore. In fact, I'm not even sure if he's still around anymore. But back in the DVD age, there was a guy who would wait for movies to go out of copyright. Then he would the next day burn 1,000 copies on DVD of whatever that movie was and put them up on eBay for $9.99 because the movie wasn't available. Nobody really cared. But then, well, this movie's got some obscure actor in it or something. And the guy made really good money doing this, right? And I always thought there has to be some sort of clearinghouse. How the hell do you find that information out? Like, I mean, I guess it's just simple research. And I can't imagine how that guy was doing it before Google took off and everything else, right? You have to have somebody on the inside who's feeding you the information. I would think that, hey, don't, by the way, just like with A Wonderful Life with Frank Capra's movie, right? Where it went out of copyright, and that's why it was on TBS every 5 minutes during and then all of a sudden now it's the best Christmas movie ever. I've always been fascinated by that, and I thought, man, what an interesting way to make a living, finding stuff that goes out of copyright and then bringing it back.
Squatters, gotta love them. They always find a way to make a buck. Finishing up with the World Series, Wayne. Question for you. So we know who's in. We made our prediction. We know we're both seeing the Astros taking this thing pretty easily. Why are we not watching the Yankees and Padres? What went wrong for those two teams in your estimation?
You can't strike out 50-something times in a 4-game series. And then timing. It's just simply timing. I read an article, I can't remember if it was in ESPN or Sporting News or something, where there was a complaint about, we have to change the playoffs, the format to make it more fair to the teams who had better records. And I'm like, I have a great idea. Stop letting 52 teams into the playoffs. If you really want to see the best two teams play, it's the American League and the National League, the way they used to do it. Now I'm not advocating for that. There's no way they do that, right? But every time you add somebody else in, what you're doing is basically saying who's better for 2 games or 3 games or anything like that. And what are the actual odds? What are the actual odds? I haven't looked of this series of the Phillies and the Astros. I would imagine that you're probably 60-40. That's not much of a difference, really. It doesn't take a whole lot. And I was going to say Zach Wheeler comes out and is lights out, and Verlander, who hasn't been really good over the last couple of starts, say that Zach Wheeler comes out and is lights out, and the Phillies take game 1. That totally changes the complexion of a short series now, right? You have to figure then that Wheeler will probably start in game 4. He could win 3 games in the series, and then you only need 1 more win from somebody on the Phillies, and you flip the series, right? So, why don't we see the Yankees and the Padres? It's nothing but timing. And when you go boom or bust with your entire lineup, you're going to run into stretches like this. Ask the Jays, right? You're going to run into stretches where people are not firing on all cylinders. You hit good pitching, and suddenly you're out.
I think the division series, the best of 5, I think is insanity. I think, the 4 best teams get their buys, and then you're coming in, and then you could be bounced out. And now I know it goes both ways between both teams, but to me, okay, the best of 3 with the wild card games, go for it, knock yourself out. But I think, getting bounced out in a best of 5, and you're like the top team in baseball, I think that's insanity. I would go back to a best of 7 at least for the division series, but that's just me.
I agree with you. I think it should be 7, and I have no problem with the wild cards being a single game playoff. I actually think, again, it's a small sample size and it's stupid, but it's not much less stupid than 3 games. And if you're going to talk about creating excitement, that 1 game you're in or you're out, I love that. I think insanity. That's terrific. And I think that's all you freaking deserve. If you're the 7th or 8th team into the playoffs, that's all you get. Sorry, buddy. We're not going to treat you like you did something amazing because you snuck in at the very end, right? You just barely made it. You've got 1 game to prove yourself, and then you've got to go play. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't really have a huge problem if they said, okay, your single game, right, for the first round. And in the second round, it's a 7 game series, but 5 of the games are at the home teams. You
Sure.
play the first 2, at the away, but then you play the next 5 at home if they're necessary.
To me, though, the one game series only works is if it's wild card team versus wild card team,
Right.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it has to go that route. When you have a division winner that goes that, I don't find that. But listen, everybody's getting in pretty much. It feels like now
Yeah.
compared to the way
It's
it used to
hot.
be.
It's getting to be NBA or hockey, right? And I
Yeah.
just, it devalues the playoffs to me.
But overall this year, I have to say, for the first kick go at it, I liked it. I liked it. I think it brought a lot of excitement. I think we had some surprises. It's been a great playoff series in baseball, one of the best in a long time, and a lot of excitement for a lot of cities. Cleveland could have easily advanced. They were pretty hot going into it. Seattle's fans actually won around. How long has that been? So really cool things happening this year, and looking forward to the World Series. Let's see what happens. Back to Aaron Judge, we got to finish him off because you know what? Talked about this before with various guests on different platforms. We just had the Steve Carsey series, Chosen Journey, and we were debating as far as MVP wise, and people are getting very mad at us. I'm going to make the record clear here. I feel that Shohei Ohtani should be the MVP. I think it's a no-brainer based on his numbers, but I believe Aaron Judge will win the MVP. There's a big difference. I think the whole Roger Maris Jr., the record, real record, tainted record in New York. I think at the end of the day, I think Judge is winning that MVP solely because of that record and the excitement around him going into the playoffs. I don't understand why him playing on that team and a playoff team has any bearing on it, because if Ohtani had his season with the Yankees doing what he did and Judge had his season on the Angels doing what he did, I don't think we'd even be having a discussion. We'd be building statues for Ohtani right now all over Major League Baseball. I think we'd already retire his number. So the fact of their markets and all that are playing a big part. But I think the real baseball fan look at those numbers. I think it's a no-brainer. Ohtani is your MVP.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think Judge probably will end up winning it, but I think to me, it's pretty clear that it's Ohtani, right? I mean, I don't want to take anything away from what Aaron Judge did this year. I mean, what he did was magical. I mean, it's just, he had an amazing season, right? But you're talking about a guy who, if he only did one of the 2 things he does, he would be he'd be top 10 Cy Young, top 10 MVP, right? But you get them both, and you get to use the roster space on another guy, right? I I honestly, it's hard for me to envision a scenario where I don't think Shohei Ohtani is the MVP every year he plays until he's horrible, because just the fact that you can use him every game all the time, and he does that for you, right? People talk about, oh, how much money is he going to get? Well, how much money would you pay for an ace starter and a cleanup hitter if you were buying them separately? You'd pay 65 or 70 million dollars probably. You get them both on that guy, and you get the extra roster spot with it. Yeah, I think, to me, pretty clearly Ohtani is the guy, but I don't disagree with you that I think just public sentiment is going to push it. It's going to be Judge.
I mean, look, if I'm the Yankees and they had equal contracts and the Angels called me up and said, I'll trade you Ohtani for Judge, I'd be like, Aaron, it's been real, buddy. You had the Judge's court, but you are gone. Any team, if you're going to build your team around one player right now and you can pay the same amount of dollars, Ohtani's available and Judge is available and both are ready to sign the contract, I'm signing Ohtani in a second for those very reasons. I mean, Judge is a great player, don't get me wrong. He also has his injury stuff. Ohtani's got his injury stuff, but when you combine the starting pitcher and the hitter, it's mind blowing that anybody could do it at that level. Like, we're usually talking about two sport players, but a two-way player in baseball at this level, MVP every year, don't care that his team sucks. It's not his fault. Listen, he can't. It's a team sport, right? But again, if he's on the Yankees are making the playoffs the same way. So, is Judge that valuable? Would they not be making the playoffs if not for his home runs? I don't know about that. That's a tough argument to make. I mean, he's got a look at his supporting cast. And look what Ohtani had
Right.
to do with his cast. I mean, he's got Trout, who's also been injured a lot, and Rendon is useless. And he did it with nothing. He won
Right.
games with nothing. He drove in guys with nothing. Like, Ohtani had nothing to work with. So I think he's far more valuable to his team than Judge in that sense. So Judge, I'm still seeing signing with the Yankees. You're thinking he's going to the Giants, eh?
I would say that if he's not with the Yankees, it's probably San Francisco. I think that's probably 75% is, and then everybody else has a shot. I don't disagree with you. I think that it would be surprising if he left. I don't think he has a reason to go unless somebody else just absolutely blows the Yankees offer out of the water. And I think that's entirely possible.
One legacy piece I read about, which is an interesting note, was Judge signs his contract. We know it's going to be around 10 years, 400 million, 500. What's the difference at this point? Like we're talking tens of millions of dollars a year, right? From a legacy standpoint, that contract is not going to age well. And he's not going to age well in that contract. And the bottom 5 years is going to be disastrous. Like Anthony Rendon, disastrous.
Right.
Does he really want to have that legacy finishing off, or does he want to leave on a high with the Yankees? But I understand that point. But he leaves, I don't think the fans will ever forgive him. Like for a lot of years, they're gonna hate him if he goes. So I think he's damned if he does and damned if he doesn't at this point. I think he's in no one position with the Yankees fans. But if I'm him again, and if I am comfortable, I mean, look, they did boo him in the playoffs, but he deserved it. I mean, he sucked. Let's face it. But on the same token, I think that home run chase really took a lot out of him. I mean, it was mentally grinding and having to speak to Roger Maris Jr. all the time. Like it's just it's enough. So, anyways, he's gonna get his money, no doubt about it. Is home run balls. Wayne, if they came down to Doug Lurie Sports and said, "Hey, I got them authenticated. Let's put these things up for auction." Where does number 71, 72, where do you think that ranks on the money scale?
It's really hard to gauge the market right now because that market for those sorts of the baseballs and stuff has obviously dropped tremendously since Todd McFarlane paid $3 million for the McGuire ball back. As a matter of fact, I'll show you this.
You have this?
I'm actually reading the book about that right now.
Oh, I thought you were going to show us the McGuire ball.
No, I have a signed McGuire ball behind me somewhere, but I think even though we say that the market is down for those, the market for overpaying for single object items right now, whether it be sports cards or uniforms or things like that, is nuts. And I don't know whether you know about fractional buying or not. Okay, so fractional buying is somebody wants to buy the logo man for LeBron James from his rookie season, and they say it's $6 million. Well, what you have now is these companies that buy it and then sell off like 1/10,000th of the card for $600 or whatever else, and it's a stock basically. Then they try and flip it later on. So I could see somebody paying $3, $4, $5 million for that baseball. But do I think it's worth that? No, I think the balls are probably worth $500,000 to $1 million, somewhere in that range. But I think they will. That's what I think they're worth. I think that somebody will probably pay $3 to $5 million.
I mean, I think Logan Paul, if I'm not mistaken, is in that as well, and creating the thing where they stored the item for you, and you get to own whatever percentage ownership in the item. Look, you know what? People want to do it. It's better than NFTs, at least something tangible that you can show. Like, those people who spent millions on NFTs. I'm sorry about your luck that you're that dumb, but
yeah.
Hey, so Aaron Boone and Brian Cashman. When we finish off baseball talk, I think this is the last part now. Before we get into a couple other sports, both of them are coming back in your estimation?
Yeah, they'll be back. I don't think you throw the baby out with the bathwater because you had one bad series. I think the team is positioned extremely well. I think Aaron Boone is a good manager, and I think Cashman is one of the best minds in the game. Does an excellent job. I don't think they're going anywhere.
Cashman, I think 1,000% as well. I mean, people were roasting him over the Montgomery trade when Montgomery, ballooned in St. Louis, and I was predicting that St. Louis would take the World Series this year. I saw that vividly. Harrison Bader, man, he made Cashman look like a genius. He was perfect in every respect for that team. Greatest acquisition in a long time. Loved it. I mean, he was the straw that stirred the drink in the playoffs for them, and really excited about his future over there. So from the Cashman's end, I think he's safe. And Aaron Boone, look, I think he did what he could do with what he's got, and it just didn't work out. I mean, that Houston team was really tough. I mean, they were firing all cylinders, and look, they haven't lost a game yet, so they may run the gauntlet at this point. So
Houston has 5 pitchers that would none of them would be less than a third starter on any other team, and a lot of them would be seconds, right? Their bullpen is amazing too. They're just a really, really top to bottom solid team, where all these other teams, even the Yankees, there are holes. We've got a bullpen issue here. We don't have enough contact hitters to get on or whatever else. Houston doesn't have that issue.
And this is after the cheating scandal, after your GM's gone, after your manager's gone, George Springer's gone, Carlos Correa's gone.
Yeah.
And there's Cole is gone, and they're still doing it. Like, how amazing is that front office to keep the pipeline going? And what did they bring? The steadiest guy in the world, Dusty Baker. Like, bring him his rocking chair and his toothpick, and he's good to go, man. And he's just keeping them going. Like Cito Gaston in the Blue Jays years. Like, that's all you need. So you just need that steady hand and the calming influence. And, I can't imagine guys giving Dusty too much crap, and I don't imagine him taking too much crap. So
no, 100%.
Perfect fit, and would be his first World Series as a manager, and we wish Dusty well on that. And Robbie Thompson being a Canadian boy, he's got his first, and you know what? It's going to be an exciting World Series regardless, and let's see where that goes. We are halfway through, though, the NFL season, believe it or not. There is a Canadian Football League in Canada. I think they're playing. I'm not sure. Don't know what's going on with it. Don't care. We're going to get into the NFL, though. Sorry, CFL, but
I have to say, as an American who played a lot of football and is very much involved in football, I actually think the Canadian Football League viewing experience is better than the NFL. I think it's actually a better game overall. It's just, if you're used to watching the NFL, it's really weird to watch the CFL. It seems wrong. It seems like a lesser league, and I don't necessarily think it is. I think, truthfully, if you were to combine the two leagues, I think the better athletes overall are in the CFL. I think the bigger athletes are in the NFL, and that's how the league is built. But having said that, I don't watch the CFL either.
You know what killed the CFL, right? You realize what killed the CFL?
The Rouge?
No, and not the White Blacks or Red Blacks. Sorry. White Blacks.
The fact that you can score a point on a punt. That's weird.
I'm telling you, when we expanded to the US and we had all those teams, and the Baltimore Stallions won the Grey Cup. So the Grey Cup, that's the trophy for the Canadian Football League, and they were in the US as well. You got the Baltimore team. They were sold out, doing amazing. And so the NFL says, oh, we'll give Baltimore a team. So goodbye Stallions, goodbye hope, and it's never been back since. So I think the death of the Baltimore Stallions is what killed the CFL. Now, looking towards the Super Bowl, we might as well just get ready for Bills and Eagles. That's where it's going, right?
I especially in the NFC. I don't know how anybody is. I don't think anybody's within 2 games of the Eagles. I mean, the jump that Jalen Hurts made from the last year to this year, where he now looks like a 5th or 6th year quarterback. I mean, unbelievable. Great offensive line, great defensive line, solid pretty much everywhere else. I don't think, are they going to go undefeated? No, they're not going to go undefeated. But is anybody going to beat them in the playoffs? I don't think so. I don't see a team that can head them off, right? I mean, who's out there that you think, wow, these guys are really legitimately going to have a shot? It's not Green Bay. It's, I honestly can't think of anybody. It's not Dallas, I don't think. I don't think there's anybody who's really even close. For the AFC, Buffalo is awfully damn good. But in a single game situation, I still think that Kansas City can beat them in the playoffs. It's just that if they have to go to Buffalo to play Buffalo in December, I don't think Kansas City wins that game. And then I don't think that there's really anybody else that's very close between Kansas City and Buffalo. I just don't see the rest of the teams.
I don't think New York fans be very happy with you right now because they're delirious because both their teams are on fire. But they're coming back down to earth at some point. Are they not, Wayne? The Jets, Giants, they cannot keep this going.
I think the Jets absolutely will, and I think the big reason is because they lost Brees Hall this week. Um, I think if you were in a situation where I think Zach Wilson, while he's fine and I like him okay, and I just picked up a really neat, shimmer rookie green prism Zach Wilson the other day. Um, I I don't see him as a big star quarterback. I see him more as a kind of game manager type quarterback with a pretty strong arm. But Brees Hall is the real deal, right? And if they could just hand the ball off to him 20 or 25 times a game, I think they might have kept going. Are they gonna beat the Bills or the Chiefs? No, they're not. But now with Hall out, even though I'm a big James Robinson fan, that was a great trade for the Jets. I think that they flame out a little bit. The Giants, I don't know. It's smoke and mirrors. I know, but man alive, they're winning games that one, they shouldn't be winning, and two, they're winning them at the end of the games, right? They're wearing guys down. They have Barkley back, and I'm a huge Saquon Barkley fan, right? Now that they have him back, you watch as the game goes on. It's like when you used to have Natron Means with Jerome Bettis. He just wears your butt down. Daniel Jones, do I think he's ever going to be a star, like a huge star? No, I don't. But he's a hell of a lot better than people give him credit for, and he can run. People don't give him credit. I mean, he trips himself all the time, but other than that, I mean, that's a huge factor. Who the hell's on their receiving core? And they're still what, 5-1, 6-1 now. That's nuts.
Yeah, they're 6-1,
yeah.
and the Jets are 5-2.
Yeah, I don't think, I see the Jets really finishing at 9-7 or maybe 10-6. I see the Giants maybe 11-5 or 12-4. I still think that's a real possibility.
Which is still great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
That's
well,
amazing.
and eventually, no matter whether you or I or anybody else in the wild world wants to believe in the Jets, in the Giants, Brian Daboll and the rest of the Giants believe in the Giants right now, right? And that's a huge difference to think that we're 10 points down going into the fourth quarter to any team in the league, and we can still make this up because they're tired and we've outworked them, and we can just run the ball. I mean, are they gonna beat the Eagles? Are they gonna get past the second round of the playoffs? I don't think so. I think some other team probably will beat them in the second round, but I pretty clearly I think it's the Bills and the Eagles. Yeah.
And the other team that people are really high on right now, and I think came out of nowhere, is Minnesota. I mean, they're getting a lot of pump in the media, and got a nice record of 5-1. But it's another team like the Cowboys. I don't see it lasting. I can't. I can't.
I just don't. I like Dalvin Cook a lot. I really like Justin Jefferson. I like their defense. Not a big Kirk Cousins guy, and I just don't see
former commander.
Yeah, I just don't see them having the wherewithal to take out the Eagles or somebody else. Are they going to finish 11-5 or 12-4 simply because everybody else in that division is awful? That's entirely possible. By the way, I do want to mention too, I don't know if you watched the Monday Nighter with the Bears and the Patriots, which was a pretty horrible game, but Justin Fields looks like the real deal. Like, my gosh, again, you talk about guys who have taken a step forward. If they ever get the rest of the team around him and just play Khalil Herbert and Darnell Mooney, right? Just throw the ball to Mooney and hand the ball to Herbert and just let it go. I think that team probably, while they're not going to be going anywhere this year, I think they may finish 9-7, like maybe or 8-8. I think next year they add a couple more pieces and that team wins the North. I think they're 12-4 next year.
Right now, the Patriots, I don't know how they even won 3 games, to be honest. And another team that's won 3 games, which we have to touch upon, are the Buccaneers. So since our first discussion here on The Chosen Life, Tom Brady, and that his kids miss him, well, Tom's life is spiraling out of control, apparently, and it's showing on the field. Like, what is up with Tom Brady, the greatest of all time? Just another big loss. the other day. How is this possible? It is Tom freaking Brady. Like, is he unraveling it? It seems like he's like aging before our eyes. Like, it looks like he aged 10 years in one day. Like, what's going on with him?
Well, let's bear in mind his passer rating is 92. He's got 8 touchdowns and 1 interception. He's not playing poorly. He's just not playing Tom Brady level football, right? Well, the guy's what, 45, 44, 45?
That's young, man.
Yeah, well, sure. He's at the point, he's at the point where he's slowing down. And on top of that, you've had an ungodly number of injuries with his receiving core, whether it be Mike Evans or Godwin or now Cameron Brate. He just doesn't have the weapons there that he's had in the past. If you look at his year, if you look at extrapolate out his numbers for the rest of the season here, he's looking to throw, he's probably in the 35 to 3,700 yard range. He's going to throw 20 touchdown passes and 3 picks. That's pretty good for a 45-year-old quarterback. It's just not Tom Brady, right? I think all of us did not want to accept the fact that this was probably the year. Now, does it help to have all the other things going on in Tom Brady's life? I highly doubt it. But I don't think this is really a problem of, I can't focus or whatever else. It's, I don't have the horses this year and I'm freaking old. And you're just going to have to accept it, right? And he said the other day he has no intention of retiring at the end of the year. I'm like, oh, okay. So does that absolutely mean that you're divorced now? Like, things are absolutely over? Because if you're going to come out and say that, then it's 100%. She's just going to, I would think.
Let's say the devil comes to Tom Brady and says, "Listen, Tom, we've had a good relationship up till now. I've given you all you've ever wanted for your soul. I'm going to give you now a choice. Either bring back Gronk or Giselle's going to be good with football and you're not getting divorced." Which one do you think Tom takes?
I hope he takes Giselle.
I think he's taking Gronk.
But I think he takes Gronk. I don't know. I
Gronk
don't
is
know.
giving him how many rings and Giselle's giving him one?
I don't know. I don't know enough about Tom Brady personally. When we had this discussion a few weeks ago, I said, I'm only viewing this from the lens of my own feelings towards my family and everything else. I don't know anything personally about Tom Brady and his beliefs or anything else like that. But at this point, if he plays again next year, what does that make you think about him as a person? It really, everybody, has had nothing but wonderful things to say about this guy. At what point is enough enough? At what point do you say, even if you get divorced, you still have you have 3 kids. At what point do you say it's time for me to just step away and do this, right? At what point is football not as important as the other things when you can clearly make that choice?
Wayne, I think he's throwing a Trojan horse up, and I don't believe Tom Brady on this one. I'm not calling him a liar, but they came to him and said, "Are you thinking about midseason retirement?" If he's going to say, "I'm retiring at the end of this year for sure," then I think he has to go through the retirement parties end of the season. Plus, then he's deflating his team, and all the questions come up. If he tells him, "Oh, no way I'm retiring," then you know what? There's a lot of hope and everything else. And I think he's just trying to inflate everybody for the season and hoping Gronk will come out of retirement. But I don't think it's coming for him, and it's sounding really, really bad as far as from the divorce lawyers' end. And they can only talk about Kanye and Kim so much. And I think the media is having a field day with him, and I don't think he's liking that attention
No.
whatsoever. So I'm really hoping they will be able to find a way to patch this up because we want the best for Tom and Giselle, and not where it's headed. But it according to the media, it ain't sounding so pretty. Now, finishing off our gauntlet, we're not going to talk about basketball today because we just don't want to. Sorry, basketball. It's just too early in the season and don't feel like it. But we're going to talk about hockey. And one aspect of it is the goalie carousel. It's already early in the year and where goalies are going, but especially because a lot of the hockey world orients around the Toronto Maple Leafs. Sorry, the rest of the hockey world, but that's how it goes. The Jack Campbell versus Ilya Samsonov debate, and looking on at early returns. As far as the investment goes and the returns, the Leafs are laughing all the way to the bank on this one.
I like Jack Campbell. He's a neat guy. It was a great story. Um, but he was not worth the contract that the Oilers gave him, right? Now again, it's only money and whatever else, and if you've got to pay to get the guy, but and again, we're talking about a small sample size here, right? I mean, he's
5 games. 5 games.
yeah, he's below 900 save percentage. I think he's 895. He's like 3.62 goals against average.
Very good.
But you know, he still won 3 of those 5 games, right? If they end up going to the Stanley Cup with him and Stuart Skinner as their goalie pairing, and they're winning games 6-4, nobody ever said anything about that about Grant Fuhrer. You know, if Campbell turns out to be the guy who is the most solid the guy that they have, that they know he's going to let in 3 or 4 goals, but we're going to score 5, and that's going to be it. If that's enough to get you there, then the contract was worth it. But for the Leafs, that was absolutely not the contract to sign. You're not going to, and giving a guy like that 5 years when he's played a year and a half as a starter, maybe that's a little much, right? And again, it smacks of a bit of desperation. From Samsonov's point, I was all behind this when they signed both Samsonov and Murray, because to me, if what happens with Murray happens, you just bury him and you got free draft picks out of it for taking the salary. My problem with Samsonov is that I think he's much better than he showed in Washington. I don't think he's a goalie who's going to steal a lot of games for you. I don't think he's a goalie who's going to take you to the Stanley Cup Finals. But let's say that he ends up in the middle of the pack to the bottom of the top 10, 2.4, 2.5 goals against average, somewhere in the 900 save percentage, 910, something like that. At the end of the year, I don't think the Leafs are going to sign him long-term to the contract because they don't have the room. And you're in another situation where he plays well here and he walks and gets a huge deal somewhere else and you're back in the same spot. I don't blame the Leafs for that, because who the hell were they going to get a good goalie from? There weren't any available. And maybe next year you go break the bank on somebody if you have the money. But do I think he's the long-term answer here? I think he could be, but I don't think that the Leafs will be able to give him the contract even if he shows that he could be.
In the hard cap era, it's very different than in baseball where you could just go and pay penalties all day long. And the Leafs could do that. I mean, theoretically, but in hockey, they don't allow that. So you have to have like a lot of cap room. You got to figure out guys on long-term injury reserve. A couple guys have all of a sudden gone on there. Money gets freed up. It's a very different sport because it becomes about economics more than talent. If all else being equal, if the money was allowed to be spent and you could play penalties on it, I would have taken Campbell as well. But man, Samsonov 2.01 goals against, 932 save percent. They'll take that in a second.
Yeah.
And I'm a little surprised Murray got injured that quickly, but it's not that shocking given his track record. But he could come back. Look, I think that if Campbell has a 3.62 goals against going into the playoffs, regardless of where he's at, I don't think he's your number one anymore. I think they're scared to death. I hope he rides the ship, but he's one of those guys. He's very streaky, but he can be stealing you games all day long all of a sudden in the second half. So just early on, it's just funny to see those numbers and what people predicted and things going to happen. But it's a long, long season. I'm going to tell you right now, going into the start of the playoffs, one of Samsonov or Campbell will not be the starter for the respective teams. Just remember, I told you that.
And I think there's a really good chance that Skinner takes over as the starter for I like Stuart Skinner a lot.
Is he related to Jeff?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think so either, but good for him. And it goes to show you, when you win a Stanley Cup and you let your starting goalie go, that shows you the value as far as goalies and money wise. Because you got to remember, when you have 40 goal scorers coming out of the yin yang, you got to pay these guys. You have to keep them. So what are they gonna do? They're gonna go for cheap goalies, and that's where goalies are at these days. But it's so different than the Grant Fuhrer years. Like, imagine back in the day, you had a 3.2, 3.3 goals against, and you got the Vezina. Now you're out of the league. Like, that's
right.
And I think that really killed hockey. I mean, I like the high scoring game. I thought it was a lot of fun. All these 2-1 games, 1-0 games, 2-0 games, like, I get it, but like, it seems like everybody's got a 2.2, 2.3 goals against. We got to up it a little bit, So we'll see. Maybe they'll bring orange pucks or something like that to the sport.
Maybe they'll go back to not wearing couches on their legs.
And I'm not a fan of the shootout. I think it's cool, but like I keep saying, if anybody's gonna listen to me, As soon as they start doing home run derbies to end baseball games, I'm done with baseball. I'm
Yeah.
done. It's not going to happen. No way. And I think that's how embarrassing it is to end your game on a shootout. It doesn't
What's
make
wrong? What's wrong with a tie in hockey? I just don't understand. What's the problem?
or a 5 hour game. How many of them really were there?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh no. So you know what it is? It's all about TV time and
Yeah.
this. That's all it
Like
is.
I don't mind the 4-on-4.
Yeah.
That doesn't really bother me. I'm okay with that, right? I mean, I
Even
would
three on
prefer,
three. Go for
yeah,
3-on-3.
yeah,
Anything's better than a shootout.
yeah.
Please.
Although, are you a fan of the starting a runner on second base in the extra innings?
No, I
No,
am
yeah,
not.
no,
That,
me
that,
neither.
that doesn't make any sense either. And they're gonna get rid of the shifts and they're gonna have pitch clocks. I get that there's certain things we're gonna do, but no, starting a guy on base, like what does that mean? I
Yeah.
don't no, 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 no. And I listen, I'm a proponent to have pitchers hit. I like the
Hmm.
National League style of game. I think it had
Yep.
a lot more in-game management and a lot of things to consider. And now, with the universal DH, I'm not crazy about it. So that's me.
I agree with you. I don't need to see somebody else strike out a third of the time. I can watch a pitcher do that.
Exactly. And the quality of the DH isn't always so great either.
Yeah.
Like the second catcher is DHing. Like, come on.
Yeah.
As we're wrapping up today's show, Wayne, honestly, it goes by in a moment. We've covered so much in the sports world, and we just barely grazed the surface of it. How are things at Doug Laurie Sports? How is the memorabilia market going and the card market? Fill us in, please.
The card market has slowed down quite a bit. I mean, if you watch the guys, you can judge how the card market is going by how many of the guys who, for the last 2 years, were pumping cards like they were penny stocks on YouTube have suddenly gone quiet. Those guys, it's like mortgage brokers and real estate agents that popped up in the last 2 years. I have a couple of customers who are real estate agents, and they both say it's funny how the people who got in the last 2 years now they're like, oh my gosh, this is actually work. I can't just throw my jock on the table and sell houses, right? You actually have to, prospect and you have to talk to people and whatever. The market has slowed down pretty precipitously. That sort of beanie baby high and low, the tulips thing, in Holland from the 1600s, there was a false market, and it was pumped up by guys who were out there shilling the market to be able to sell things themselves. You still have the people who have the measuring contest that are going to buy the $5 million cards from Golden Auctions, and nothing against Golden Auctions, but that's just a look what I have. I have so much money, I'm going to spend it on this, right? The sort of ham and egger regular hobbyists are still there, but all the guys who thought they were going to get rich, the same way they thought they were going to get rich buying property 2 years ago, and now are upside down on that. They're all crying in their beer if they have money for beer, and they're trying to dump their stuff, and everybody's trying to get out at the same time. Everything else is fine. The market has gone back to where it was. It's still a little higher than it was. There's still more money to be had in certain things, but there are a lot of people selling things now, and it's getting back to vintage, and the prices are not so ridiculous as they were.
Well, that's great to hear. And figured everything would level off. The same thing's happening in the watch market. It's going to happen in the car market. And it's just like stocks, like you said, real estate. It all balances out at the end of the day. But people get very high on the highs and then they get very panicky in the low. But it will come up as long depends on how long you can hold on to it, so to speak. And we're going to give you your contact information at the end of the show there, so everybody's gonna be able to see where to reach you online and on social media. Wayne, it's been an ultra pleasure having you back on the show and with your insights. I love how you don't hold back and you seem to know everything about everything. So we're definitely going to have you back on, and there's a lot going on towards the world of sports, and we may even bring up the NBA next time.
What now? Will you have me back before the Vancouver Canucks win a game?
I promise that.
That's pretty tough. I don't know. You would have, if it's in the next 2 or 3 weeks, maybe not. If it's more than a month, then I suspect maybe they might win a game. I feel terrible for them. That team, and I don't know what the problem is. It's just they're just jinxed at the beginning. I'm hoping they rip off 7 or 8 games in a row, right? Just to make people forget about this. It's horrible.
Well, they will win a game before the Eagles lose a game.
Probably.
And maybe Mike Babcock's available. Maybe he can come and solve the answers for them. I don't think he's been completely canceled, so he may come back. We will see.
It was great being here.
A pleasure, my friend. And we'll keep in contact, obviously. We didn't talk much about wrestling this time around, but still interested to talk about the big show and your relationship because apparently he's going to be coming back to wrestling. So lots going on in the sports world, Wayne. Always a pleasure. And as we end off, we bring out the pipes and we say, keep living the chosen life.
You got it.